Howdy, y'all, welcome back. One thing we cannot do when we look through the old world, when we look through photographs from before the year 1900, is make assumptions. We cannot do that in our research. Now, today I found something very interesting. We are going to be looking at the oldest, the rarest, and the most telling photographs from the history of Bridgeport, Connecticut. Now, check this out. We also have a handful of these photographs, which actually led me down the path to making this video. These photographs are actually labeled as, quote, alien property, which was seized by the United States. It was seized by the government of Connecticut, and these buildings, these old world style buildings, masonry and brick buildings, as opposed to more modern steel buildings, these were repurposed in Connecticut. We also have what appears to be entire neighborhoods also being labeled as, quote, alien property. And these entire neighborhoods, it appears, were reclaimed by the government of Bridgeport, and then all of these buildings were either torn down or they were repurposed. They were built on top of, they were made to have a new history. Now, this is very interesting to me. It's very revealing, as I've never seen more than one or two images, more than one or two properties being labeled that way. Yet in Bridgeport, we're looking at a large number of the buildings seemingly being repossessed and then repurposed by the United States government. Keep that in mind as we dive deeper into this collection of photographs of Bridgeport. Let's briefly now discuss what the current narrative history has to tell us about this historically significant New England powerhouse of a city. Enjoy. The land that became Bridgeport was originally home to a large settlement and town of indigenous people of the Repossessed Nation. This village at Bridgeport was home to at least 500 indigenous people, if not more, and these members of the Repossessed Nation, known as the Pequannock, resided in over 150 well-built dwellings, according to European narratives. Those from Bridgeport may be familiar with a neighborhood known as Black Rock. This neighborhood was originally part of Fairfield Township, while the rest of what today makes up Bridgeport was originally part of Stratford Township. Interestingly, there are conflicting reports over the time of the first English settlement in this area, with dates ranging from as early as 1639 to as late as 1665. As the English settlers arrived, the indigenous Pequannock abandoned their village, town, and their homes in Bridgeport. The original English village in the area was named Newfield, again with an indistinct date given, although all sources agree that the founding of Newfield occurred before the year 1777. During the American Revolution, Black Rock Bay became a hub for privateering, and a large number of the richest spoils of war were brought into the Bridgeport area. By the year 1800, Newfield Village officially became chartered as the borough of Bridgeport. By 1821, the township of Bridgeport was formed, which grew in size significantly. By 1836, Bridgeport was officially changed to be a city. Bridgeport, like much of New England, was world famous for its fishing industry as well as rapidly growing farming industries. However, the city's location directly on the harbor allowed for the largest booms of the 19th century to come in the fields of shipbuilding and whaling, both of which Bridgeport was said to have pioneered for the state of Connecticut. As Connecticut abolished slavery, Bridgeport was home to a large community of free men and women, which was known as Little Liberia. By the 1840 census, African Americans made up nearly 5% of the free population of Connecticut. Also in 1840, the first rail lines to Bridgeport opened service, facilitating a more rapid growth of the city. By 1851, the Bridgeport Harbor Light was constructed to aid water navigation with this boom in population. Abraham Lincoln, before gaining support to run for the presidency, was said to have visited Bridgeport in the year 1860, where he gave one of his most emblazoned and memorable speeches, leading Republicans to give Abe their full backing. However, the most well-known full-time resident to call Bridgeport home in the 19th century is often considered to be the showman, P.T. Barnum. Barnum not only built 4 massive and unique mansions throughout the city, but he actually housed his entire circus in Bridgeport for the winter, and even is documented as using elephants to not only help maintain his land, but also to aid him in construction and farming. His mansions in Bridgeport include the memorable Iranistan, The Barnum Museum also sits in Bridgeport, and Barnum himself is buried in Bridgeport's Mountain Grove Cemetery. As Bridgeport continued to grow into the late 1800s, the population skyrocketed. This was said to have caused the need for a rapid creation of public works, public parks, and other municipal buildings to give the growing public the resources they need to survive. Again, P.T. Barnum was said to have played a major role in helping the parks and the conditions of Bridgeport overall improve rapidly. By 1881, Frederick Law Olmsted, the eccentric designer of New York Central Park, was contracted to improve the parks and public works of Bridgeport. Bridgeport officially annexed Black Rock in the year 1870, which included the old world style Black Rock Harbor Light. Through the end of the 19th century, numerous other lighthouses were founded throughout Bridgeport, including the Penfield Reef Light and the Tongue Point Light. By 1910, the electric trolley system had begun operation throughout the city of Bridgeport, and alongside the expanded standard rail travel, the Connecticut Railway and Lighting Company car barn, a massive storage and repair facility, was founded in Bridgeport. As we observe the population through the years, we are told that Bridgeport had only roughly 1,000 people in the year 1810, or the first official census of that city. Yet, by the year 1840, the population had exceeded well over 4,000 inhabitants, and by the year 1860, this population had jumped to over 13,000 people. This number more than doubled by the year 1880, when Bridgeport's population exceeded 29,000 people, and by the year 1890, this number surpassed 48,000. By 1910, the population had again grown rather significantly to over 100,000 people. By 1920, the population exceeded 140,000 people. Also in 1920, 32.4% of the population of Bridgeport was foreign-born, with another 40% being the children of immigrants. As for the labor force in Bridgeport, over 73% of them at this time were foreign-born. By 1930, Bridgeport was a thriving industrial center with more than 500 factories and a booming immigrant population. The city was home, for example, to many firsts. The Frisbee Pie Company, considered by many historians to be the source of the Frisbee toy known by nearly everyone today, was founded in Bridgeport. Bridgeport also had the first dental hygiene school, or dentistry school, in the country, which opened in the early 20th century. We are told the city of Bridgeport, which thrived throughout the Industrial Revolution well into the early 1900s, then experienced a slowdown of growth beginning in the 1940s. However, today, Bridgeport is the largest city in Connecticut and is the 5th largest city in all of New England. The population of Bridgeport is roughly 150,000 people today. As mentioned earlier, and seen in the very name of the city, Bridgeport is one of Connecticut's most important port cities, fueling the economy for the state, with a location just 60 miles from downtown Manhattan. Since the beginning of the 21st century, Bridgeport has begun an extensive renovation and repurposing of the downtown area, which consists of mostly masonry and brick buildings. It appears that the city of Bridgeport has been upgrading these buildings multiple times throughout the last few centuries. Bridgeport is known or nicknamed as the Park City or the City of Parks due to its numerous public parks, sitting at a number of 35 parks and growing. Bridgeport is also considered, statistically according to the current narrative, to be the 25th most diverse city in the country. Can we see all of these different influences in the old world style architecture of the city that we've been looking at in today's video? I'd love to hear what you think about Bridgeport in the comments down below.